Good evening, Steve Westman, live Audiophile Roundtable. Man, 2025 Audiophile Reissues. They're coming out hot, Michael. They're coming out hot.
Last week was a big week, wasn't
What
it?
a week. We got the Bob Marleys. I mean, I know, I have the UHQR Exodus already. I've got the, when it came out,
Yeah,
the
I
Bob
brought those
Marley
out too.
Rastaman Vibrations. We didn't even plan for that. Wow.
That was about 2 years ago, wasn't it? And now they're 33 RPM, 45 RPM. They're SACD, and they are real tapes, which is unbelievable.
I've had a few viewers contact me. They already pre-ordered their reel-to-reels. I mean, they're going for about $400 or something like that. It's a lot of money.
A piece. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Well, we had Matthew Luthans on a couple of weeks ago. Remember that?
Well, he's the one that's going to be, I guess,
he makes the tapes,
making those tapes, right?
Yeah.
So this is a special show because, I mean, like I said, I want to put it back up. We're, 2025, it's already, Audiophile Reissues are coming out hot already. We're a month and a half into this.
Yeah. I know, I'm excited.
I didn't expect it. Obviously, it was a big announcement by Analog Productions. I think it's going to do very well. I'm very excited for those. I guess the whole series there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to hear the reviews when they come out. So that was quite exciting to see that last Thursday. I'm excited about that, and that's only February, and we've got lots going on the rest of the year. So it's coming out hot. Who the heck knows what to expect next? That's for sure. But we got a special guest, so I'd like you to introduce him first of all, Michael, and then I'll bring him on.
So the guest I'm going to introduce, I met maybe a little about 2.5 years ago. I met Gary Ko. Gary Ko owns Genesis Advanced Technologies. He makes speakers. He also makes a record player.
Hold on, he makes them like handmade?
He makes speakers. He has a speaker design company. Yeah.
Okay.
Genesis, he got from a guy named Arnie Nudell. He worked with him for a while, who was with Infinity. And I met Gary. And back in about 2022 at Pacific Audio Fest here in Seattle, Gary invited me down to help him set up his Genesis Prime Plus speakers, which are pretty incredible. They retail for almost $700,000. So, but not all these speakers in that price range. But he asked me to come help set him up. I was flattered.
Hang on, the speakers are $700,000. Is that what I heard?
That's the top of the line. No, he has speakers that are much lower than that. He recently introduced a line called G7 that are much more affordable.
Wow.
But we'll talk about that later. But that's how I met Gary, and we gotten to be good friends. And he recently loaned me a prototype of a phono preamp that he made for VPI. I know we have many listeners that own VPI turntables. This is called the VPI Avenger phono pre. We'll talk about it in a bit. But But VPI commissioned Gary Ko, my friend, to design this battery-powered phono preamp. So I have one here, and I thought I would have Gary on and talk. We've had people in the comments say, "Hey, let's talk about gear." So we're going to talk about gear at the beginning, and Gary's going to come on and talk about that.
Well, you know what? Hang on. Let's bring him on.
Yeah.
Gary, how are you, sir?
Hi, Steve. Hi, Michael.
Thanks for coming on the show. I know you've watched it before. Really excited to have you on. I mean, you've got obviously a lot of experience. I mean, making gear, and then we're going to talk. You're even making audiophile records, producing records as well. So we'll get into that later on in the show. But before I do that, and I'm also really curious. I need to see these $700,000 speakers, Gary. Do you have them behind? Do you have them behind you?
I have them online. They are called the Genesis Ones. If you go back to the 70s and remember Arnie Nudell and the Infinity, the IRS, 7 feet tall, 4 towers, and that was where they started. And Arnie founded Genesis in 1991. I took over in 2002 and have continued ever since. And when Arnie retired, I continued designing loudspeakers.
That would be amazing. I'll put your website up. I want to see these speakers. I can't imagine if you can order them online. If if the PayPal transaction is going to go through or not. How do you do that? You need one of those platinum cards or something like that, right? I just wanted to first bring out here. We know High Fidelity Records. I was looking at their website the other day. Josh gave us his top 5 again. That's available on his website. And I wanted to show the folks that right here. You know the website, highfidelityrecords.com. Now, this is interesting here. Here's his top 5 that are available right now. Not in any specific order, but I'll just go through it here. Maybe you have a lot of these records, guys, or maybe you don't. But this is the John Hyatt, Bring the Family. original master recording, mobile fidelity. Now, this is one of those rare MoFi, like the Anadisc records, and this one's factory sealed, so kind of interesting there. And then we have a Genesis trick of the tail, mobile fidelity. This is another factory sealed as well. I like that record a lot. And then we've got Dr. John in the right place. This is a first press near mint Presswell pressing. Apparently, it sounds amazing according to Josh as well. And I mean, who doesn't like Street Survivors? Leonard Skinner. This is another first U.S. press. This is the tan label, all original inserts with the Flames cover, as you can see in the background there as well. And then last but not least, the Dave Matthews Band Live Tracks Volume 4. This is a 4 LP box, only limited to 2,000, and it was mastered at Sterling Sound. HighFidelityRecords.com. Grab them. Not some bad picks, from High Fidelity Records. Wow.
Nice.
Gary, I wanted to tell you a couple of months ago, there was a guy named Danny Kaye that was selling part of his collection through High Fidelity Records. And I got these Julie London lacquers.
Nice.
But the first, it was on a label called Boxstar Records, and then Chad bought them out.
Yep.
But the lacquers actually, I know you're familiar with this gentleman. They're actually from Bernie Grundman. Yeah.
Did Bernie sign his full signature on it? Is it BG or Bernie Grumman?
These are, let me see, these are 40. No, these are 45s.
Is there a difference though between the two, Gary? Does it matter?
He signed the 45s, right?
He signs them. It's usually what you do. If he really likes it, I feel that he will sign his full signature on it. If not that, but when he does anything for me, I ask him to sign his full signature anyway.
Okay, full stop there. Let's just start with that because I'm dying to hear. Gary, tell the folks you're producing records, you're distributing records, you're making them audiophile.
I started making records purely for myself.
What? Hang on. What? Without a market, just decided going to spend the money?
I just decided that I wanted to make a record. Okay. So the first album I made.
I want to see this. And this is all mastered by, master of the master tapes by Bernie Grundman, correct? Is that
mastered by Bernie Grundman?
This is Bernie Grundman. So we can't get this in the store.
What's that?
We can't get these in the store.
It's unfortunately this one is sold out.
Okay. So what is it?
The unique thing about this was it is a direct to disc, and we made a direct to disc album inside Bernie's studio. So
put that up again, Gary. Sorry to interrupt you because I want to see it. I saw something there. It says live at Bernie's there, guys. Do you see that?
Yep. And Bisson Trio, yeah.
Yep, it's actually recorded live at Bernie's. So I hired the musicians. I hired the recording engineer. I hired Bernie Grumman. We used his studios, and we made a recording. And the reason I did it was because, look, I'm a loudspeaker designer. And loudspeakers are right at the bottom of the chain. If it isn't in the music, I will not hear it.
Okay.
Coming up from the speakers. So I want to know how much has been lost throughout the chain. So I wanted something where I could actually be standing there, listening to the musicians, doing the recording, listening to the lacquers and the tapes and the recording, and what I hear out the speakers when I do my design. So that is, somebody said that is the finest.
So Bardo can put the record up again so the folks can see it. I mean, this is amazing. The Anne Bisson record is the finest sounding record I own. 4 seasons in jazz, live at Bernie's. Live at Bernie's, direct to disc is how it was recorded and cut, right?
It was cut. It was cut direct to disc. It was cut over a weekend, and on Monday, 8 a.m. in the morning, we rushed the lacquers to RTI where they plated it immediately. So that's as fresh as you can get.
Wow.
And so that was the first one I did. I did a couple after that. And this last, when I met Michael, was the Pacific Audio Fest. So for the debut of the Pacific Audio Fest, what I decided to do was big band is my favorite genre of music.
Okay.
So what I did was I hired a big band to play to entertain the audiophiles. And while we were entertaining the audiophiles, the 2 days before the performance, I spoke to the bandmaster, and said, "Hey, do you have CDs or records that you can sell?" And he said, "Oh no, we have never been recorded." So I convinced one of my friends, Key Choi, to bring a tape machine, and his friend, Dr. Philip Chance, to bring microphones, and we recorded them. Because we thought that why not, record the band and give the recordings to the band master so that he could play it for his friends. But you know what? It sounded so damn good, we decided to turn it into a record. So
Unbelievable.
we recorded the next year as well. So we will have a double disc coming. It will be a one-step recording mastered by Bernie, lacquers cut by Bernie himself, and pressed at Fidelity Pressing.
So tell the folks, where would we find these records once they're available or once they're pressed?
I'm friends with Elusive Disc, so the usual place I put them all is at Elusive Disc.
Okay.
So you might have to bug them for this album, because it'll be a few more months before we can get it ready.
How many are you going to make, Gary? How many albums?
3,000.
Okay.
Oh, wow. And then the Anne Besson, are you gonna print that one? How do we get a copy of that?
Anne Besson has repressed it, but you see, with a direct to disc, you cannot repress. You cannot.
That's right.
Repress. But what she did was she reissued it on pink vinyl using the backup tapes.
Okay.
So that's the best quality that you can get right now.
And where would we find the pink vinyl?
Elusive Disc should have it.
Okay.
I see the comments, Steve. Someone's asking, is that a VPI turntable behind Gary?
John Loper.
That's a VPI Direct. That's a prototype VPI Direct.
The Avenger. Yeah.
Avenger Direct.
So it is the Avenger.
Yeah, it is the Avenger Direct.
John saying, Gary, it's a dream table.
It is. It's a wonderful table.
And part of the reason that we had Gary on, Steve, was because Gary was asked by VPI to design a phono preamp for VPI that matches the design of the Avenger.
Hold on. So
I invited him on.
You're actually making the phono amps as well, like by hand? Wow.
Yeah. Hey, sure, hang on.
And you have one there too, Michael, right?
Yeah, I do. Gary loaned it to me back in December. It's going to be hard to
them by hand.
Hang on.
We build them here. We build all the parts here. We do hand soldering in Washington, and this is the innards. This is one of the PCB innards of that Avenger that Michael has.
There's no AI chips in it yet from NVIDIA yet, are there?
No AI chips.
Yeah.
AI chips.
So Gary, I saw Gary back in December. I've seen him a couple times since then, but he loaned it to me to listen to. It looks just like the Avenger, the finish. See that? And I'm going to turn it around for a minute.
Yeah.
It's battery operated. There is an option to have external power amp, but it is powered. Here's what's interesting about this. This is powered by 20 AA batteries.
That's a lot of Duracells.
It actually is.
That's a reason for that.
Batteries go. Yeah.
You see, one of the things about stereo that I found is that matching the left and right channels are so important. That what I've done is that I've used 20 Duracells, so that the positive and the negative rail of the power supply is absolutely matched, even when the batteries start to wear down. And I think Michael can talk about the statistics of that, but that's how it works. So that if you use two batteries for the positive and the negative rail, when they start to wear, then left channel, right channel doesn't get the same current.
So Gary, what's the advantage for people that don't know? What's the advantage of having a battery-operated phono preamp versus plugging it into the wall?
You have no ground, and because you have no ground, you don't introduce noise and hum and
ground hum. Yeah.
Basically you plug it in, turn it on, and it works. Think of it as an extension of the cartridge.
Interesting. And I saw in the manual it says the battery should last for between 2 to 350 hours, correct?
Yes.
They last quite a while. Yeah,
That
yeah,
lasts quite a while. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Those are my big speakers.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to show everyone. I just pulled it up. This is your website.
The
Wow.
Prime Plus, yeah.
I've never seen $700,000 speakers before, Gary. Tell us
Well,
about these beauties.
Well, listening to them is even better than seeing them. Yeah.
and Steve, see the woofers on there? There's 6 12-inch woofers.
I was just about to ask that, yeah.
There's another 6 on the rear.
What? Hang on, is there another picture of it here? Oh my gosh.
On
See
each
if I can-
side.
Is there another picture, Gary, somewhere? Or is this just the only picture? Oh, it's right
do-
there. I see.
yeah.
I see what you're looking at. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're each side. That's the left and right. That's the
Right.
left side. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you're looking at one side of the speakers. There's the pair has got 24 12-inch woofers,
Wow.
and it fills a room pretty well.
So, how big of a room, Gary, do you have for speakers like this? That would be
I
the ideal size.
I demand 23 feet by 45 feet before I will sell it to you. I have had people rebuild their house to house a pair of these.
Well, these speakers are more than some people's houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
it's about the entry price for a mid-level Ferrari.
Ferrari or speakers, eh? What a
Yeah.
conversation to have with your wife. It's like, hey, honey, we can buy a Ferrari or a Rolls or get speakers. What do you think?
Yeah, you could get a pair of speakers that you can listen to every night, or a Ferrari you drive an hour a week.
True.
So,
Wow.
Steve, I wanted to go back to the phono preamp for a minute because one thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to talk about, one really unique feature about this phono preamp. So, look at the back. You have inputs and you have outputs and you have a battery or external switch. You'll notice there's no gain switches and there's also no loading switches on this phono pre. So this phono preamp requires no loading for your moving coil preamp. A lot of people will load their phono pre's at 50, 100, 200, 300 ohms, right? 1,000 ohms. So this one, Gary, has no loading whatsoever, correct?
You see, the last phono pre I had a remote control that I could change the loading, and I could change the loading at capacitance or the resistance. But the problem is that I want to listen to music. I don't want to be fiddling around with a load. And then when I went to do my research, I discovered that the load was only necessary because there's a resonant tank circuit created by the impedance, the inductance of the cartridge, the capacitance of the tone-arm cable, and the impedance of the termination at the phono stage. And this resonant tank creates a spike at over 100 kilohertz that overloads the phono. So you get all that harshness, you get overloading and all that problem.
So even though we can't hear 100,000 kilohertz, it kind of works its way back into the music, you're saying?
Yeah, it just overloads the input, or if you allow it through, it will overload the preamp that it goes in, that you go that the phono stage is plugged into.
So adjusting
so
Gary,
before we go on,
okay.
So everyone wants to know how much. Put it up again. Put up the phono stage.
$2,500.
2,500, and where do we buy them?
Which is relatively reasonable.
Yeah, you can get it from any VPI dealer.
Okay.
Your favorite VPI dealer, or you can get it from vpidirect.com.
And Michael, how have you? Obviously, you've tested it, or you haven't?
I have been listening to it for about a month and a half. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. Here's what I've noticed. I've noticed a lot more solid. I told this to Gary as well. There's a lot of solid punch in the low end, and I've noticed that with moving coil cartridges, sometimes you get kind of this hashy sound on the high ends because of the loading. And I've noticed that that's not there with this specific phono preamp.
Yeah, it's just as transparent as I can design it. The thing is, it wasn't we didn't set up to design this but I had loaned Harry Weisfield. He was the founder of VPI. I loaned Harry one of my Genesis phono stages, and he loved it. Except it was $24,000. So he loved everything about it except for the price.
Yeah.
So one day Matt called me and said, Gary, can you design something at a quarter the price? And so I said, 6,000, yeah, maybe I could. So I designed him something for $6,000. But still not affordable. So we decided to actually get something which met my requirements for transparency and quality of sound. And we just released it at 2,500.
And it's also on the VPI website right now. You can buy
Yeah,
it
it's on
directly.
the VPI website.
Yeah, yeah. How did you manage to get something that you were, if you're somebody that's used to things that are costing 20, 30 grand for a phonoprix and more, right? How
Yeah.
did you manage to make something for 2,500 that you were satisfied with?
I didn't follow the rules. You see, if you follow the rules, if you try to figure out how to do this the normal way, there are so many components and so much you have got to put in the RIAA curve, the input buffer, the output buffer, the filters and all that, the power supplies, that there's no way you could get it down to that price. But using a circuit that a lot of electrical engineers look at and say, how is that ever going to work? But it does. It works. It's totally transparent, and there are only 7 components in there. But each of those components has to be absolutely the best, and they have to be absolutely matched.
For
So
left and right channel, right? Yeah.
left to right channel, correct.
Yeah. And I'm going to give it a stab, Gary, at kind of trying to explain how I understand your amp needs no loading. Because you mentioned that most voltage amps will amplify the entire signal, and you get a lot of noise over 100,000 kilohertz, correct?
Yes.
So from what I understand, how Gary got around that is he amplifies the RIAA curve with variable voltage. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you're not getting to that noise that's up of 100,000 kilohertz that works its way back into your signal.
Yes.
It requires
You
loading.
see, a lot of the times we think that we have got to amplify it flat to get a flat frequency response, right? But the RIAA curve requires you to amplify 20 hertz 100 times more than 1 hertz, than 1 kilohertz, and 1 kilohertz 100 times more than 20 kilohertz. So it's a curve that goes like that. Now, if I take this curve and extend it all the way down to 100 kilohertz, then it's almost at 0 at 100 kilohertz. So that spike is never amplified. So you don't have that problem.
Here's a question for you. What are the name of Gary's products?
It is the VPI Avenger phono that we are talking about. So if you take this curve and you extend it all the way down, then you don't have that problem of amplifying that 100 kilohertz spike. But the problem is, how do you do that easily using a one stage? And that was basically that was the formula I had to crack.
You know, the dilemma that you described with phono preamps and the 100 kilohertz spike reminds me of people that have criticized DSD 64 for having noise that's so close to the music. And people say that DSD 256 is actually helped by having the noise farther up. Is that similar?
Yes, it's very similar.
Very similar.
I have a question for you, Gary. I mean, obviously you've been doing this how long have you been doing this for?
26 years.
Okay, so you know about the whole digital versus analog debate.
Yes.
Are you more of a digital? Does it matter to you? It's the sound, or are you more, okay, I'm biased towards analog, that's the only thing I can listen to, or do you have a digital sort of taste as well, or does it really matter?
It
where are you at?
The format doesn't matter, it's the sound. If you can get it, if I cannot get something in analog and I can get it in digital, that's great. I will enjoy it as much as something from analog. So and I think I did this to Michael. Michael, did I do the digital to analog, the comparison?
I don't think you did it for me. No,
Okay,
no.
what we did was really fun. When the whole MoFi thing blew up, there was one of my friends is Ying Tan. Ying Tan owns a recording label called Groove Note. Groove Note does Jacinta and Vanessa Fernandez and all those guys.
And also ORG, didn't he own Original Records?
He owned ORG as well, and he was a
yeah.
partner in Classic Records.
Yeah.
So we're good friends. So when this whole thing first started coming up, Ying had this great idea and he and Bernie were the real instigators. I just wrote along for this. Ying provided his masters, his 2-channel tape masters to Bernie. And Bernie took those masters and made an analog master and a DSD master and cut both those masters onto one lacquer. And when you listen to the two tracks on that lacquer, one is digital, the other one is analog. And we played it to a bunches of audiophiles, and I played it last Saturday to Michael as well. And there were people who preferred the digital, the others preferred the analog, but you could hear the difference.
So what would be the big difference between the DSD portion and the AAA portion? Like, what are you hearing to be the differences?
It depends on your sensitivity. If you think that you like digital music, a lot of the times you think that the analog is digital. And if you like analog music, a lot of the times you think that the digital is analog. It is a different flavor. There is a difference, but that difference is not what you think. Analog turned out to be a little bit more accurate. I've heard the lacquer versus the original 2-track master, and the analog is actually, to my ears, is a little bit more. It's a little closer than the digital, even though the digital could measure better than the analog.
So the digital measures better, but the analog sounds better.
The analog sounds
closer to the master tape.
So in your opinion, then the mobile fidelity one steps that are right now, obviously we know most of them are DSD. Your thoughts on the one step, the quality, the sound from your experience? What are your thoughts on all of this?
One step is far better than the 5-step. I have actually done actual comparison using the same tape and the same lacquer. I've heard the lacquer, the 1-step, and the 5-step, and the 1-step is clearly better than the 5-step.
So what are you hearing in the differences, the subtleties, and the differences between the 1 and the 5-step?
You lose a bit of the resolution and the detail. Sometimes the breath, like when a singer sings, the breath is missing. The tonal colors, I get more textures in instruments with the 1-step, and it is not that obvious. So if you do not get a chance to listen to the 2, don't. Because once you hear the 1-step, you'll never go back to the 5-step. But if you've never heard a 1-step, a lot of times the 5-step is great.
So let's ask Gary about this. We had a mastering engineer mention that 30 to 40 years ago, they heard a 1-step and they saw silver that was on the vinyl that transferred over from the lacquer. Have you ever seen that before?
I have not seen that, but there is that possibility. Because even when we are doing when we're doing test pressings and we are doing the 1-steps and all that, I don't know why audiophiles love test pressing so much, but test pressings are where you solve all the problems first before you actually press the thing. I've got scads of test pressings, but a lot of the times, like that. A lot of the times I prefer to listen to the actual production album rather than the test pressing itself.
Yeah, when we had Don and Doran on from RTI a couple of weeks ago, they mentioned that for test pressing, they just start the machine and throw them on. For the actual production copies, they spend a lot of time getting into details.
Yes. But that's where your relationship with the pressing plant matters. Because when we do test pressings with, like, for example, when we did the test pressings for NBSON, what Doran told us to do is not to have the test pressing done as the first press of the morning. So what he did was he ran somebody else's albums first,
Don't
so that
mention the
all the
name.
presses were nice and warm. Then he ran my test pressings, and then he sent those test pressings to me. So that way we really got to hear the difference on that. And yes, the cachet of a test pressing is the allure that you've got. It is a collectible.
So you've probably know there has been. I mean, Michael sort of mentioned there was a big debate. There has been a debate. We've had number of shows on it. The whole 1-step versus the 5-step. DSD versus the AAA tape. I mean, do you do blind shootouts? So do you blind shootouts, or do you know which one you're listening to before you
when
drop
we
the
did
needle?
when we did those shootouts with these lot. So we did. This is 3 lacquers here. Each of those have got 1 track digital, 1 track from a digital master, 1 track from analog master. When we did it ourselves, we did not know which track was which. Bernie did a naughty on us, so he sealed the results. It's open now because we've already done it, but you can see that's his signature. And he mixed up the tracks. Some were digital first, others were analog first. So we actually had to do it ourselves before he gave us this to open to have a look. And I got a few wrong. The owner of the recording label got a few wrong. So it is that close.
I think that's the absolute best. I've never even heard of that before. So you're cutting DSD and the analog tape on 1 lacquer.
On 1 lacquer. 2 tracks on 1 lacquer.
And I'll take that back, Gary. About a year ago, I was at your place where you opened up the envelope for the first time. I remember that now.
Yeah.
And he compared the DSD and I got it wrong, to be honest with you. I did.
So what did you so there is, I mean, there could be some, presumption bias as well, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
This takes it completely out of you. You have no idea. You're dropping it down. You hear the first track, okay. Second track, oh, that was DSD. I didn't know that. I thought that was, AAA. So that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
And which record is that you held up, just so the folks can see that again? What did you hold up there? What is
these
it?
are all. So this was that's Anthony Wilson. So this was 2 tracks, and every disc would be different. We also did a track from Roy Gaines.
And you tell the folks is it 45 RPM on 1-step vinyl? I didn't ask you that. Sorry.
No, it's an actual lacquer.
Oh, it's just a lacquer. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a lacquer cut by Bernie. So it's 45 RPM, 2 tracks on a lacquer. It's called a reference lacquer, and there are only 2 tracks on it.
And they're bigger.
So yeah, they are bigger. No, they are reference lacquer.
Yeah.
So you see, there's only 2 tracks on it, and that's cut by Bernie.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Are there any cases, Gary, where you decided to go with the DSD, or did you always decide to go with the analog for the issue that you?
This was only an exercise that we did. It is not something that we would do to the Groove Note is known as an analog label, so none of that was done. This is not to be published.
Mm-hmm.
This was just something just something to satisfy our own curiosity.
An experiment, right?
Yeah.
What did Bernie Grunman think of it? What was his final results or final conclusions on this?
If you don't have the analog, if you don't have the actual tape, DSD is good. If you cannot get access to the analog master, then a DSD copy is as close as you can get, and you can get to the music. If you If you can get the analog master, then take the analog master.
The other piece, Gary, and we should probably bring this up too. If you have a really well-made DSD master, and if somebody has, let's call it a mediocre setup with their analog reel-to-reel, the DSD is going to sound better, right?
Yes, of course, absolutely.
If they don't know how to align the machine properly, or
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't make the copy properly, the analog is much worse than digital. Digital is a lot easier to make copies than analog is, because we've been making analog tape, publishing analog tape, and it is a nightmare. It's not easy at all.
Take some
So
questions.
someone is asking in the comments, Gary, was that DSD 64 or higher?
Put that one up. There you go.
Higher. It was done on Emerging Horrors, so I believe it was 256.
256.
Jean-Paul agrees. The DSD is as close as you can get. No problem with MoFi and DSD. This is the reality.
Yes.
So when this whole DSD gate broke out, to you were like, well, I mean, everyone was buying them. Everyone was buying these DSD one steps, not knowing. And from all the different YouTube channels and reviews online, everyone was digging the sound of these back then before the news broke.
Before the news broke.
Well, here's the reality. If they're taking their Tim DeBarasini machine, a Studer, to Battery Studios that's owned by Sony, and they're making a direct transfer, odds are it's going to be a pretty nice transfer, right?
Right.
So, Gary, you'd have no problem buying any of the current one steps that MoFi's.
No, absolutely not. But you see, I tend to go for originals rather than the reissues. I've spent my life collecting vinyl.
Yeah, we're there too.
I like originals.
Well, that's we should want to get into that as well, because I mean what we're talking about today was 2025. It's a audiophile big reissue. We had Bob Marley come out. You saw that at the beginning. There's going to be lots of stuff going forward. We're only a month and a half into 2025, and it's been interesting so far. And I wanted to show you this one. I know you're into jazz. That's sort of your big genre. Let me grab it. So Jacob from Craft just sent me this one. This is the Bill Evans Trio Explorations. This is the one-step Craft that Bernie Grunman mastered and cut as well on one step, and it's just a beautiful sounding record. Again, this is one area where I'm really going to be focusing more this year is my jazz collection and listening to. I'm more into the classic rock, so as everyone knows, I need to start listening to some of these records more and really getting a better feel for the sound. But I mean, I think this being one step, this is a Bernie Grunman, like I said. I mean, from the Masters, they did a great job on this one. Kraft did, and I have the other Kraft recording one steps, and I've been really happy with them so far. And I wanted to thank Kraft for sending me this. It's pretty cool and really well done. Explorations. I mean, a great sounding record. I mean, I don't have the original, of course, but I mean, this was like what I think it was like 1961 or so, right? Recorded it back in in New York, and man, I mean, this is their second and final studio album that was recorded with that trio. So I mean, it's it lives up to it. It is a great sounding record. And I've read reviews about this record, about the Kraft recordings one step, where I think someone had mentioned the drums, or there was an issue with the drums, I want to say. But from my listening to it, I listened to it twice now, and I didn't seem to have any issues with it at all. I think it played beautifully straight through, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And that's pressed on the Neotech vinyl, right?
This is the Neotech one step, as you can see here again, Bernie Grunman.
Yeah,
great job. Yeah, no, that's I was really impressed with it.
Wonderful.
So I've heard people. I'm going to ask Gary this question. I've heard people say that Neotech, the VR900, has its own sound that some people dislike for certain kinds of music. What are your thoughts on that?
Every vinyl has got a different sound.
Every formulation, right?
Okay. Every formulation. When I did the 4 Seasons in Jazz, we did 9 test pressings. And the reason we did 9 test pressings was that at that time, the RTI had one good audiophile vinyl and the ordinary vinyl. And neither of them I felt sounded enough like the lacquer, like the original. So we were messing around with the vinyl, And that's something that I've done with the Pacific Northwest Audio Society. Same stamper, same press, same machine, different vinyl, and you can hear the difference with every single test pressing that we did.
So what formulation sounded closest to the lacquer?
That's the formulation that we ended up using. At that time when we did it, they called it the Black Magic, and then they improved it a little bit more. And Impex is using it now, and they call it VR 900.
So VR 900 is different than Neotech, or is it the same?
I do not know.
You don't know.
There could be minute differences, and the way these vinyl plants work is that if you've got a formula and you paid for that research to make that formula, you have exclusive use of that formula.
So the Bill Evans Trio Explorations by Kraft. This is the VR900D2 compound they're using.
Great.
From RTI.
That's one of the best.
And I wanted to ask Gary, I've noticed that you did a test pressing for your record on the kind of the clear UHQR looking vinyl. What's your thoughts on those clear looking, like what UHQR does with Chad at
Clarity
Analog
Vinyl.
Productions? Clarity Vinyl.
Even with the clear vinyl, there are different formulations.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that clear equals better.
Okay.
When I played you that clear pressing, that was on a vinyl that was exclusive to a Japanese company, and we wanted to try that, but I felt that it sounded the colors were muted. It's like there's a gray wash over the color over the sound, which was why I ended up rejecting that formula.
So you didn't like that formula?
I did not like that formula. But there was one clear formula that I liked when we were doing Four Seasons in Jazz. We did one test run with a clear formula, and that one was hugely dynamic, but I felt it lost emotion. So we went beyond that one.
Gary, I was asking you, I mean, we always do picks on this show, and I'm sure the folks want to see some of your picks. And the reason why you're picking these ones, because you feel these are the best sounding ones based on your years of experience, knowledge, etc. Correct?
Well, it was the best sounding when you ambushed me with that, and I could pull it out from here. But they are some of the fabulous ones because I picked them for an event that we had here with the Pacific Northwest Audio Society last weekend. And you want to see some of them?
Start with one. Yeah, I'll put you full screen. I'm excited to see this. What are we looking at here?
We are looking at Al Gray, the last of the big plungers. Al Gray was called one of the big plungers because he used a toilet plunger.
Oh, look at that.
Mute for his trombone.
I hope it wasn't one they used for his toilet prior. Jeez.
Hopefully it's clean when he used it.
No kidding.
Yeah, but this album, this particular piece of vinyl is from 1958. This is an original. They never reissued this. They never repressed this. And the reason was because he kind of stole some members from the Count Basie Orchestra without letting Count Basie know about it. So he got blacklisted after that, and this album has never been repressed because of that.
Let's see the vinyl. Let's see what this looks like inside. What's it look like? And what year?
What's that?
What year would that been pressed?
1958.
Wow.
So Gary, on this record, what are you listening for when you design speakers? Like, what about this record do you listen? What do you listen to?
This record was done in the days before they had compressors and all the graphic equalizers and everything. So a lot of what is on this record is really the unfettered dynamics of a big band. If you listen to the cymbals, you listen to the drums, you listen to the horns. The horns can hurt. A trumpet blast can hurt you physically, if you are standing close enough to it. And this is one of it's a bit noisy because the vinyl from 58 is a little bit noisy, but the dynamics come through the transparency of the musicians, the transparency of the instruments really come through. So I use this a lot for the bite of the horn and for the sound of the cymbals.
So you would use that on your Genesis speakers that we showed the folks prior.
Yes, I use this is one of my heavy rotation to design.
Right there. Put the record up. Put the record up. So you'd use that with the VPI Adventure turntable behind you as well with those speakers?
Yes.
And this would be one of the really test your system. That record be used.
Yes.
Wow.
When I'm designing and when really to listen. You see, when you are designing, you've got to listen to the same track like 100 times. And if the music wasn't great, I'd be so bored of it that I wouldn't be able to continue the design. So this album has got fantastic music as well. The musicians were really on point for this.
Michael, what did you bring?
Well, actually, I bought that same record that Gary recommended to me, so I happened to buy it too.
How much are they going for?
I got it about 4 years ago, so I don't remember 3-4 years ago. It's on Discogs, but as people find out about it,
we're going to jack it up. You know what, Gary? We've jacked up the price as of now.
Price.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'll show something. I'll show something that Gary actually. I'll show something that I bought back in January because I heard it at Gary's place in December, and this is an artist I'd heard of, but I had not heard their music. Have you heard of from Iceland, Lofi? A beautiful record. It's called The Night at the Symphony. This was cut at 45 RPM over 4 sides. It's a gorgeous sounding recording. And I believe, Gary, you mentioned you learned about Lofi from your daughter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She's got like 4 million fans on TikTok.
Wow.
But she cares for the music. The production quality is excellent, and she's got a lovely voice.
Yeah, and it's a beautifully recorded record. I got that because I heard Gary's. And I should mention, Gary, we're promoting that Prime Plus speaker, but you have speakers the G7 series, which is much more economical and affordable than those Primes, right? And I heard them on some of his newer speakers, that are much more economical.
Yeah, I've got $10,000 speakers as well.
Yeah.
What are their names? What's the name of those ones?
It's the Minuet, the G7 Minuet.
So Gary introduced me to that record. Yeah.
Those are the Series 7s, Gary?
The Series 7s, correct.
Hang on, I'll put them up here. I want to show.
There's the Minuet, the Tango, and the Foxtrot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
They are it was a reaction because I was telling a childhood friend of mine that I make loudspeakers, and I was telling her that my cheapest loudspeaker was $45,000 a pair, and she fell over. And who would ever buy anything like that? So I decided that I wanted to design something which would bring the Genesis quality of sound down to something that people could afford. And in order to be able to do that, I had to design a driver that has the largest solid titanium cone in the world. It's got a 4.5-inch solid titanium cone. The cabinet is actually made of bamboo, not MDF, because bamboo is stiffer and lighter than MDF. I could get much more stiffness of some of my carbon fiber designs using bamboo. And I spent basically 2 years tuning it to get it to sound like my more expensive speakers.
And you use trickle-down technology. The tweeter comes from speakers that cost much, much more, correct?
Yes, it's the same tweeter. I use the same quality, the same crossover components throughout the line. So the tweeter, you get one tweeter with this one, you get 26 with the primes.
Special order, or like how long would it take if someone said, "Hey, Gary, I want a pair"? Do you have to make them? Are they in stock?
The G7s are in stock. The 7 series are in stock. The Prime, you'll have to pay me, and then wait 9 months.
Wow.
And yes, I've had some of my rich clients go, "Gary, I cannot wait for 9 months. I'll pay you more, make it faster. And my response to him was that his name was well, let's not mention his name. Yeah, but I said to him, sir, you cannot pay 9 women to make you a baby in 1 month. It takes 9 months.
Yeah.
The sensitivity of those sensitivity is you see, while I do a lot of measurements actually there are things that I can measure that I don't hear, and there are things that I can hear that I don't know how to measure. The sensitivity of the minuets is 86 dB per at 1 meter, but they do tend to fill rooms much better than what the measurements would say. The F3 is also the F3 is also very much higher than what you would hear. And when I brought it to a reviewer, the reviewer insisted that I take the F3 measurements, the frequency response measurements away from the website, because he said, Gary, there's no way that speaker only goes down to 60. I hear a double bass when the double bass is playing. So bamboo is extremely stiff, but you need to know how you use it. The cabinet is actually a bamboo sandwich, and because it is in my higher end speakers, what I did was I did a lot of studies on constrained layer damping. Constrained layer damping is when you use different materials with different types of interface materials and make a sandwich out of it. And by varying thicknesses and materials, you can actually tune the damping down to where you want to get to. So with the bamboo, I had to do the same thing. Isn't just a sheet of bamboo. It's actually a sandwich with bamboo and MDF as well, and that's how I controlled the resonance.
Christopher says, it's rare trait these days, Gary. Appreciate the honesty more than ever. You do not rush art.
No, and my sister didn't want me to do a live stream because she knows I got loose lips. Ask the right questions and the secrets all come out.
And for those that don't know, Gary's sister is the CFO of Genesis, right?
Okay. I didn't know that.
Keeps me in business.
She keeps him in line.
That's good. That's really good. Well, I think if the longer we get him on here, though, maybe we'll keep him talking, and we'll get some of those secrets, and he'll spill the beans more and more. So there you go. I got some more. You know what I did the other day? We'll go back again, but we want to talk picks as well. Now, I don't know if you're a big Beatles guy, Gary, but this is that mono cut that came out by Capitol. The Capitol mono cuts. Kevin Reeves, I believe, is the master and engineer. Michael,
yes,
I cut this. So I liked the sound of it. It was cut hot, as they say in the industry, right? It was a hot cut. So I was like, I'm going to pull out my old CDs. You guys remember back in 2000, I think it was 2004, the Ted Jansen, Ryan Smith remasters of the Capitol albums. And I did compare. I mean, they have the Beatles 65, and I have the Beatles 65 on CD here. And still, this one is cut hotter. I'm not sure what source they used for this, the 2000 and what was it they say it was 2004 CDs. Yeah. I had no idea, but this one still, I was like, whoa, definitely a difference.
You know what I'm most excited by now that's going to be released but has not been released yet is I listened to a lacquer a couple of days ago of George. It's called "Be Here Now." George Harrison's album song. It will be this year's Record Store Day Song of the Year.
By George Harrison. Okay.
George Harrison, Be Here Now. What's amazing is that it's going to be a double A side single, 12-inch single, 45. It's got George Harrison doing Be Here Now on one side, and it's got Beck doing a cover of it on the other side. That's cool. They are going to call it side AA. So it's a double A side, the single that will be released on Record Store Day. I listened to the lacquer a few days ago, and it brought tears to my eyes. It's beautiful.
And Steven, you know who cut that? Levi Seitz.
Oh, wow.
Our friend Levi at Black Belt Mastering.
Yep.
So getting back to the Beatles, I mean, I was shown in this is the CDs that came out, Ted Jensen and Ryan Smith. Then they did 2006. They came out with Volume 2. This has, of course, the early Beatles, Help, Rubber Soul. But I mean, I was really impressed, actually, guys, with the Rubber Soul. It's both in stereo and mono. Again, I don't know which generation of Capitol tapes they used at the time, but I hadn't listened to this in years. I had to pull them out of my garage, and I'm excited. If they ever come out with another reissue of Rubber Soul, man, of the Capitol version, I will. This is a really good reissue of Rubber Soul. If anyone has it and can agree with me or not, but I was really impressed with it. Love it. But I did find too on one of the tracks here, it was You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. The mono version sucked. I actually had to turn it off. It was just got into my ears, and it just didn't have the separation of the instruments. There was just something wrong with that track on the mono. So I switched it to the stereo one. I was like, okay, that's better. So I don't do that very often. That was one that I really noticed in this box set. There was a real big, significant difference in sound. But yeah, not bad. But I've had them for years. I had to pull them out. I hadn't listened to them years. But I mean, I remember I was excited when these came out in 2000, like early 2000. I'm like, this is awesome. New Beatles stuff. It's great.
Yeah, talking about the Beatles, one of the albums I pulled out when you asked me which albums I love is this one. It is the King Singers doing a cappella Beatles. It's called the Beatles Connection. And it's just a bunch of Beatles songs. You've got Penny Lane, the Mother Nature's Son, even things like Obladi, Oblada, Yesterday, Hard Day's Night, all in a cappella by the King Singers. I use this a lot when I'm doing design because the separation of voices in a chorus, in a choir, to me is very, very important in the ability of a pair of loudspeakers to show you that it is an integrated choir, as well as to be able to pinpoint each of the singers within that choir. So the Beatles Connection, King Singers, fabulous music, great performance, very, very, very good sound quality.
So you can go and pick up the old Capitol CDs, Volume 1 and 2, and pick up your Beatles record there.
I need to add that on my disc. Yeah, disc. Wow. So what are they called again? The King Singers?
Put it right up here.
The King's Singers.
All right, I'm gonna have to go add that to my Discogs. Yeah. The King Singers, Beatles.
These are, I think you can still get these. I don't know how much they are in Discogs for these guys, but they're probably expensive now.
The Beatles Connection is called. I found it. Okay.
How much are they?
As low as $3. They're not going to cost you that much.
None of these albums that I pull out are very expensive. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, wanted to show. This is interesting too. We had the Super Bowl this weekend. You guys watched that? Watched the halftime show. Obviously, we don't have to get into that as well. I mean, it was art, right? That's what it basically was. I don't know. I watched the Super Bowl halftime show again with Kendrick Lamar, and I heard it better the second time when it was actually live. I didn't really hear the singing. I'm not sure if I don't know if it was anything. I guess it was one of those things a lot of people complained about it, but it was very interesting. I'll leave it at that.
And it set a new record. It was the most watched halftime show ever. 134 million people watched it.
Yeah, I did some research on it, so got more involved in all the diss tracks and stuff. I mean, there's between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, there's 48 minutes of diss tracks between the two of them. That's a whole album, right? So, and which is interesting, Drake is not suing Kendrick Lamar for those supposed things that he's saying about him. He's suing the Universal Records, which I think is fascinating because who has more money? Who can he negotiate a new contract with? I don't know. I think we're getting played. I really do. I think this is just a big marketing ploy. I really do.
Steve, we have a fan that knows that King Singer's record and is actually complimenting Gary for picking it out. Go look at that. BB photo.
Here we go.
Can you believe that, Gary? They know about it.
BB Photo says, yes, the separation of the vocals in the King Singers is amazing. It's one of my demos. So that's one of Gary's demos, too. So when Gary's got his VPI Avenger and he's got his Genesis speakers worth $700,000, these are the records that he's going to. They're worth $3. They're not $300 pressings.
$3.
Amazing. Amazing. So I wanted to change it up a little bit, and I saw this. I know this is completely off topic, but it was. I'm a big sports guy, maybe not as much basketball, and I saw this. I mean, we know this. We know this logo, right? This is the Bulls logo,
Hmm?
right? Work with me, Michael. Come on, you know this
Yeah,
logo,
the
right?
Chicago Bulls, right? Yeah,
Chicago Bulls.
yeah.
But if you turn it upside down, Gary, check it out. It's an alien. Look at that.
Yep.
I'm dead serious. There it is there. You turn it upside down. It's an alien doing something to something. But that's
Yeah.
now that I know that and see that, now I can't look at the
Can't
logo ever
unsee
again.
it.
They need to change the logo because now I'm always going to think of the alien doing something there.
You can't unsee that.
I can't unsee that now. I can't ever look at it that way because I see this. And I always like to, I mean, looking through different posts and whatnot. I thought this was really cool. It's always interesting to see different people who play in different bands and what they listen to and what they inspire. So this is an old. I saw this is an old. Looks like a newspaper clipping. Metallica and some of the, the band members of Metallica at the time and some of the records or whatever they were listening to at the time. I thought that was fascinating. Three of the band members at the time were all listening to some Tom Waits records. I would never have guessed that. Obviously, see Bowie there. Kirk Hammett listened to some Bowie and some Blue Train by Coltrane. Some, of course,
And
Miles
Barry
Davis,
White.
kind of blue.
Yeah, Barry White.
Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti. There's Barry White in there as well. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan. You see that? AC/DC. Lars will listen to AC/DC and Alice in Chains.
Bob
He's also
Marley.
listened to Miles Davis and Deep Purple and Made in Japan. It's a good album. I didn't expect him to be listening to Guns N' Roses, but he listened to Appetite for Destruction there and the Bob Marley record. It was Oasis as well, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then U2 Octum Baby. Wow, interesting. But yeah, so we'll leave it at that. We're at the top of the hour, and I really appreciate, Gary, you coming on today. This was fascinating. Do you have any more to show before we go? Did you pick? Did I miss one?
I want to introduce your viewers to this one.
The Ray Brown Trio.
The Ray Brown Trio with Gene Harris and this was live in Japan.
$4.99?
Yep, I bought it. I got it at $4.99, but I don't know if you can find it now because it's again one of those great pressings that is cheap. Nobody knows about it, but it sounds fabulous. So if you can find this, go grab yourself a copy. It's got great life because the band talks to each other. It's like a live recording. It's like you being there at the concert. So
Ray Brown Trio, Bam Bam Bam, recorded live in Japan Music Festival in 1988. If it's on Discogs, I bet you it's probably still $4.99.
Yeah, it's probably still $4.99. Nobody knows about this.
Look at this, Gary. You're already getting demands. Get Gary back, Westman. Get him back.
Recently, for the Pacific Northwest Audio Society, Gary hosted, what was it called? Music to design by. So he played music that he uses to design speakers and components. It was fun. So he has a slew of records he could recommend.
So Gary, now I'm waiting for my demo speakers to come into my house here. Just kidding. Can you imagine? My room's not big enough for your liking, so you would never agree to.
The G7s would fit nicely in there.
No.
G7s would work. Yeah.
Put them right behind me somewhere. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, thank you for this.
I'm gonna hold it up one more time, okay? This is the phono preamp that Gary just designed for VPI Industries, the Avenger Phono.
Ooh.
Battery operated.
20 Duracells.
No loading required. Okay. And Harry Weisfield loved Genesis designs, and he asked Gary to design a phono preamp for VPI, and here it is.
Looks like a big iPhone.
It matches their turntables.
Yeah.
So I didn't know this, Gary. This was your very first live stream you've ever been on before. I just learned that tonight as well.
Fun fact.
Amazing. So guess what?
Yes.
You're coming back.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.
More picks. And I was thinking too, now, Now you must have a place where all those speakers are at some, like you have a whole demo area or demo room somewhere?
I don't have a demo room. We've got only one dealer here in the US, and he's in New Jersey.
Okay.
The most of my sales tend to be in Asia, in big homes there. But I'm hoping to change that with the new 7 series, because these will be the smallest and most affordable speakers we have ever made.
And those are
So
the
2025,
G7s, correct?
the G7s, yeah. 2025, we will be hunting for more dealers, and
Yeah.
we
And Gary, we should mention in March next month at Southwest Audio Fest,
yes,
there's going to be a special surprise. You're adding one more to the line, aren't you?
yes, you've heard it already. Yeah, we're adding one more to the line of the G7s, and it will be released at Southwest Audio Fest in Houston, in Dallas.
Nice. Well, everyone, thank you for joining. Awesome show tonight, Gary. This is amazing. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
had fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Amazing. Till next time. Talk to you guys again.
Thanks, Gary.